Purgatory. Dante and his guide, Virgil, fresh out of their terrifying journey through hell, arrive at Mount Purgatory, a mountain on the opposite side of the world from where they started. Their long climb begins at the very bottom in a place called Purgatory, which is kind of like the waiting room for Purgatory. This is where souls who were either excommunicated from church or slow to repent hang out before they are allowed to start their real purification process. These are the folks who took their sweet time getting right with God. The first person they meet here is Cato, an ancient Roman who was put in charge of guarding the entrance to the mountain. Cato makes it very clear they are going to need to get clean before entering, so Virgil takes Dante to a river and symbolically washes the hellish dirt off his face, a little baptism moment before they move on. As they begin the climb, they notice a bright ship approaching led by an angel. On board are the souls of the dead, arriving to start their purgation journey. The souls are stuck here for a while depending on their specific sins. Dante meets a man named Manfred, a former king, who explains that he has to wait in this layer for 30 times as long as the excommunication period. But if people on earth pray for them, it can shorten their stay. Another group here are the late repentant, like Belacqua, a laid-back soul Dante recognizes. These folks are stuck here for as long as they lived on Earth, but eventually they'll be allowed to climb the mountain. As night falls, they are forced to stop climbing because in Purgatory, no one is allowed to ascend without sunlight. It's symbolic. Just like in the Christian faith, you can't find salvation without the light of God. Finally, Dante and Virgil witness an ongoing battle between angels and the serpent from the Garden of Eden. The angels' swords are worn down from centuries of fighting, a sign that Judgment Day is coming. In the morning, Dante wakes up at the gate of Purgatory, ready to start the real climb, but not before an angel carves 7 P letters into his forehead. Each time Dante purges one of these sins, at the end of each layer, a P will be removed. First Terrace, Pride. After passing through the gate, Virgil guides Dante through the 7 terraces of Mount Purgatory. In the Terrace of the Proud, Dante and Virgil encounter sculptures of humility, such as the Annunciation to Mary and Emperor Trajan's Act of Justice. These examples serve as reminders of the virtue that counters pride. The souls here are bent under the weight of heavy stones, symbolizing their burden of pride in life. But unlike in hell, they are repentant, reciting prayers for the living as they carry their stones. By mimicking their posture, Dante also humbles himself, shedding his pride as he climbs closer to heaven. Among the souls, Dante meets Umberto Oldobrandeschi, who took pride in his noble lineage, and Oderisio of Gubbio, who was proud of his artistic achievements. Provenzano Salvani, a Ghibelline leader, is another example, proud of his dominance over others. Dante also humbly acknowledges his own struggle with pride. Sculptures on the ground illustrate examples of pride itself. Satan's fall, the Tower of Babel, and figures like King Saul, who was proud in his defiance of God's commands, and Arachne, who challenged the goddess Athena. When they reach the stairway to the second terrace, an angel erases a P from Dante's forehead, and he feels lighter as they continue. Second Terrace, Envy. Here, Dante and Virgil encounter the envious souls. These souls are punished for their jealousy of others' fortunes by having their eyes sewn shut with iron wire, symbolizing how envy is linked to what they saw in life. Unable to see now, they rely on audible examples of generosity, the virtue opposing envy. Dante hears voices praising acts of generosity, including the story of the wedding at Cana, where the Virgin Mary expresses her joy for the newly married couple and encourages Christ's first miracle. Also, the friendship between Orestes and Pylades from Greek mythology is mentioned because it exemplifies true loyalty and selflessness. As they progress, Dante speaks with Sepia, a woman who admits she found joy in others' misfortunes more than in her own fortune. Dante promises to pray for her. The voices in the air also recount envious figures like Cain, whose jealousy led to the first murder, and Aglaurus, a classical figure who turned to stone due to her envy. As they leave this terrace, an angel representing charity appears and removes another P for envy from Dante's forehead, making him feel even lighter, symbolizing his spiritual progress. Third terrace, Wrath. This terrace is shrouded in thick, dark smoke, symbolizing the blinding nature of anger. The souls here are enveloped in this smoke, signifying their current state of being unable to see clearly due to their past wrathful behavior. Dante and Virgil encounter the virtue meekness opposing the sin wrath. They see examples that illustrate how individuals acted with patience and humility rather than anger. An example from the New Testament is chosen, where Mary's reaction to finding Jesus in a temple is highlighted, showing her understanding and compassion rather than wrath. Similarly, Saint Stephen's forgiveness during his martyrdom is used as a biblical example of meekness. Dante and Virgil meet Marco Lombardo, who explains that just as wrath blinded them in life, the smoke blinds them in purgatory. Marco also discusses the nature of free will, emphasizing that it is crucial to understand that individuals have the capacity to choose their actions even in the face of adversity or anger. Marco elaborates on the corruption of power and religion, noting that when political power and spiritual authority intertwine, it often leads to moral and ethical failures. As they continue to walk on, Dante experiences visions of wrathful figures from both classical and biblical stories such as Procne, Haman, and Lavinia. Following these encounters, the Angel of Peace appears and removes another P from Dante's forehead, symbolizing his progress in overcoming wrath. The two poets leave the terrace just as nightfall approaches, and Virgil explains the concept of love to Dante. He distinguishes between natural love, which draws people towards goodness and God, and the love of the mind, which varies between individuals and influences their actions. Virgil's explanation underscores the idea that righteousness comes from choosing to align one's desires with true goodness, rather than succumbing to perverted or misplaced loves. Terrace number 4, Sloth. This terrace marks the beginning of the upper purgatory sections, which deal with sins involving the misdirection of properly oriented love, unlike the earlier terraces that dealt with outright misplacement of love. Here, Dante encounters souls who suffered from sloth, or acedia, a sin marked by a lack of zeal and effort in their pursuit of love and goodness. To counteract their past sluggishness, these souls are now forced to run around the terrace, constantly. Their ceaseless motion represents their newfound zeal, which is the opposite virtue of sloth. Instead of verbal prayers, the soul's continuous activity itself serves as a form of devotion. The souls here call out examples of people who exhibited great zeal, such as Mary's hurried visit to her cousin Elizabeth, reflecting eagerness and dedication to act out of love and duty. Also, the determined actions of historical figures like Julius Caesar and Aeneas are mentioned. During their stay on this terrace, Dante dreams of a siren, a symbol of disordered love and temptation. The siren tries to lure him, but is revealed to be hideous and monstrous when a second figure intervenes. Virgil destroys the siren, and Dante awakes, realizing the dream's symbolic warning against deceitful desires. The Angel of Zeal then appears, removes another P from Dante's forehead, and the poets proceed. Terrace number 5, Avarice. This is where the souls of the avaricious and prodigal are purged. These souls loved earthly goods excessively, whether through greed, ambition, or extravagance. They are laid face down on the ground, unable to rise, as they recite Psalm 119:25. My soul cleaveth unto the dust, quicken thou me according to thy word, which expresses their desire to follow God's law. The hands and feet of these souls are bound so they can't get up, and they are essentially forced to lie there on their stomachs until their penance is over. On this terrace, Pope Adrian V speaks to Dante about the dangers of desire for wealth and power. Whenever Dante tries to bow himself before him in reverence, Adrian tells him to stop, because here they are both equal servants of God. They walk on and hear someone weeping about a scene from the life of the Virgin Mary countering avarice, the humble birth of Christ representing poverty and contentment. Dante then sees Hugh Capet, the king of the Franks, personifying greed for worldly wealth and possessions. He laments the greed of his successors, mentioning Charles II of Naples selling his daughter into marriage to an elderly and disreputable man. Dante walks on and sees further representatives of pure greed like King Pygmalion, King Midas, Heliodorus, and Roman general Crassus. Suddenly, the mountain shakes, symbolizing a soul's readiness to ascend to heaven. This is when Dante and Virgil meet Statius, a Roman poet who reveals the cause of the earthquake and shares his joy at completing his penance over 1,000 years in Purgatory. Then the Angel of Moderation clears another P from Dante's brow, guiding the group onward to the next terrace. Terrace number 6, Gluttony. Here, the souls of the gluttonous are purified. These are individuals who, during their lives, overindulged in food, drink, or other bodily comforts. The punishment for gluttony involves a cruel irony. The souls are tormented by hunger and thirst in the presence of sweet-smelling, fruit-laden trees, but the fruit remains forever out of their reach. The skinny and decrepit souls are cursed for the length of their penance to smell the fruit and be hungry. Even Dante almost falls victim to the beautifully smelling fruits, but Virgil stops him. From the trees, voices can be heard that give examples of temperance, the virtue opposed to gluttony. They tell of the Virgin Mary, who shared her son's gifts at the wedding of Cana, and John the Baptist, who survived on locusts and wild honey. On the other hand, the vice of gluttony is illustrated by the centaurs, whose drunkenness led to the violent battle of centaurs and lapiths in Greek mythology. Some voices from the trees mention other examples of gluttony from biblical history, like Gideon's army who abandoned their mission out of concern for satisfying their hunger. Dante now wonders why the souls here appear so gaunt if they no longer need physical nourishment. Poet Statius, who now accompanies Dante and Virgil, explains that the appearance of the souls reflects their spiritual state. Those still enduring penance appear weak and thin, while those who have been purified, like Statius himself, look strong and radiant. 7th Terrace, Lust. On the final terrace, souls purge themselves of misdirected love, specifically lust. Here, there is a wall of purifying flame through which every soul must pass. These flames, unlike those of hell, are not meant to burn with punishment, but to cleanse and prepare the souls for their final ascent. Souls that succumb to lust must purify themselves by running through the fire while recalling examples of lustful places or figures, such as Sodom and Gomorrah and Queen Pasiphae. As the sun sets, the angel of chastity appears, explaining that all souls, whether guilty of lust or not, must pass through the wall of flame. Dante is terrified by the idea of walking through the fire, but Virgil reminds him that Beatrice waits for him in the earthly paradise on the other side. With that encouragement, Dante takes the plunge, remarking that the fire is so hot it feels like he would cool down in a boiling vat of glass. After crossing the fire, Dante is now cleansed of all his earthly sins and lays down to sleep. When Dante wakes, they are ready for the final ascent, but at this point, Virgil can go no further. The earthly paradise, also known as the Garden of Eden, awaits. Earthly Paradise. At the summit of Mount Purgatory is the earthly paradise, symbolizing the innocence before the fall of Adam and Eve. Here, Dante encounters the lush beauty of the Garden of Eden. Virgil's departure signifies the end of Dante's training in human reason, while now a woman called Beatrice arrives to guide him through divine grace. She rebukes Dante for straying from virtue and demands his confession. After Dante confesses, he is washed in the river Lethe to erase his past sins and drinks from the river Eunoe to restore good memories. By noon, Dante is prepared to ascend to heaven, which I cover in the next video on Dante's Paradiso. Go watch it now.